East Yorkers won the battle. In this case, 30 years later, we lost the battle, but in doing so, this guy won a very special place in the hearts of everybody in East York. And he continues to do that today, and it's my honor and my privilege tonight to welcome on your behalf East York's hero, Michael Prue.
Before I begin, I was told I had about 2 hours, but I'm only going to take about 20 minutes, okay, because I know it's late. I want to start by, first of all, congratulating this enormous accomplishment of 35 years. 35 years is a long time for an organization of volunteers to exist and to do the kind of work, the historical, significant work that each and every one of you does every time you meet. I am so impressed. As a matter of fact, when my dear friend Donna Lynn McCallum died, she left me over 10,000 pictures of events in East York. And I didn't know what to do with them until I came with the brainwave that I should donate them all to the East York Historical Society. And I think that's part of the reason that they're looking for a place, is to put Donna Lynn's pictures in perspective. You know, I was asked tonight to speak about my time as mayor, and then to conclude with what I'm doing today. So I'm going to turn it around just a little bit. I'm going to conclude with where I am today. Just to let you know, I now live in a little town called Amherstburg. For those who don't know where Amherstburg is, other than Pelee Island, I live in the most southern place in all of Canada. You have to go all the way to Windsor and then drive 40 kilometers due south from Windsor, which some people who don't know geography very well think must be in the United States. But actually Detroit is north of Windsor. It's really quite an amazing bit of geography there. And you'll find the little town of Amherstburg, and then you have to get on a ferry when you're in Amherstburg to go to the island that I live on. It's called Bois Blanc Island. But because the Americans can't speak any French at all, it is most known in the area as Boblo. So it's not Bois Blanc, it's Boblo. And I live on Boblo Island. Just to let you know how historically significant this place is, and part of the reason that I chose to retire there, it was the scene of the first battle of the War of 1812 in Canada, when the Americans overran Amherstburg and took Fort Malden, which was the fort which was there. And it was held by the Americans throughout the years 1812 to 1813 or 14, in which time it was returned in exchange because the British, along with our Indian allies, let them keep Fort Malden. They went over and captured Detroit and all of Michigan. Well, you know that. And so they exchanged after the war all of Michigan for Amherstburg. And I think we got a good deal, because Amherstburg is a place of great historical significance. Not only did that happen in 1812, but after that, the rebellion of 1837, 1838 was when the Americans, along with some Irish and a few Canadians, came over on boats and tried to capture Amherstburg again, but they were captured, and all of the people who were captured were deported. Even though they weren't, some were supposed to be hung, but most of them were deported, and they sent them to Van Diemen's Land, which is Tasmania. And then after they were there for 7 or 8 years, they were told they could go home, but they had no money. And so most of them ended up in Van Diemen's Land and died there. And so that was just a little bit. But the thing that's really significant to me, and what I'm really proud of in this little town, is the museum that's there. The museum is called the Freedom Museum. It used to be called the Black Historical Museum. Now it's called the Freedom Museum. And that museum highlights all of those people who escaped the United States primarily after the War of 1812, right up until 1865, when slavery was abolished in the United States. They made their way, and once they crossed the Detroit River, they landed on Boblo Island, and then were ferried from Boblo Island to the mainland where they were free. And to this day, many of the houses in downtown Amherstburg are known for those people who fled slavery, found refuge in Canada, and went on to become absolutely great Canadians. They always ask to talk here about East York too. That's enough about where I live now. Okay, I'm going to tell you why I'm there and not here in a minute. Life before politics. You heard a little bit about my life. I went to university. I grew up in Regent Park, all those things. But two things sort of taught me how to be a politician. The first one was I got involved in the Public Service Alliance of Canada, a large union, and they taught me how to do rules of order. You know, some people think, how can you sit there through all those meetings and understand what's going on? And how do you stop people who are making fools of themselves by using rules of order? Well, they taught me all of those. And rules of order are absolutely essential for a politician. And I thank the Public Service Alliance. And the second one was my job in the Immigration Department. I did many things over the years. But for 14 years, I was counsel to the Minister of Immigration before the Immigration and Refugee Board, or the Immigration Appeal Board as it was before that. My job was to stand up and make presentations, to speak for 20 minutes or half an hour without notes on whatever topic was there, whatever case was there, whatever the board needed to hear about. And you know, it stood me in good stead, because now I can just almost talk to anybody, anytime, for 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours in the legislature without notes, just because it just comes to me. So I thank them for that. On the 7th of April, 1993, I was chosen to be the mayor. Today's what, the 5th? Yeah, so it's 24 years, in 2 days, it'll be 24 years ago. I still remember the night after 24 years. Alan Redway asked if I could come and talk to him tonight before this started, and just to describe in part what happened that night. And he was amazed that I still remember absolutely every detail in my mind of how the council chose me as mayor. It was probably the single greatest honor of my life up until that point, and maybe even still. Because although I was elected, and have been elected many, many times, to be chosen by your peers in a real contest, because 6 of the 8 of us, after Dave Johnson left, wanted to be mayor. And we had to get it down to just one, winning 5 or more votes in order for it, and it took 5 ballots. And but I remember that. If you want to really see some more about this, Barry and Jane tomorrow are holding a meeting for seniors, I think mostly seniors, in Parkview Hills at Prestine Church, which is about to become a historical place too, because it's being shut down, and who knows what's going to happen to it. People are talking maybe it's going to end up as a condo or something, I don't know. I'm sure the good burgers of Parkview Hills won't like that much. But it's, I'm going to be there, and I'm there for 2 hours. And part of what we're going to do is to see the tape of the night I became mayor. My knees were knocking the entire night. But it's really good to see how the process works. And as Peter Truman, who was the anchor for Global Television in those days, said, it was the rawest move of political power he had ever seen in his entire life. Because when it was voted, wasn't voted by secret ballot, it was voted by a show of hands as people dropped out or were forced out. It's something to see. So if you've got some time tomorrow at Prestine Church, 1 o'clock, we're going to show that.
1:30.
1:30, and we're going to show all, and we're going to talk about 1,000 things that I can't include in 20 minutes. The first 18 months as mayor, I remember the things that we went through. We had to look at our infrastructure as a municipality. We didn't have any money. We had to restructure the staff. We had to deal with the unions. But we also knew that we had to start building. There was government funds available, and those were like halcyon days. We repaved the roads. We built a daycare center. We took what reserves we had left. We partnered with the federal and provincial government, and we gave East York a real opportunity. The PAPE Center, where you go, go swimming and community activities, that was all rebuilt in those days, and we used that kind of money. We needed money, and so we thought, how are we going to get some? Because there wasn't enough taxes. And John Godfrey, who was the Liberal Member of Parliament from the Leaside area, came and he gave me a suggestion one day in the office, and I thought it was kind of a unique suggestion. He said, you know, everybody's into computers these days, and you know, there's a new thing called fiber optics. And I had never heard of fiber optics, but I listened intently to what he had to say. He said, you know, no municipality in this area is completely wired with fiber optics. If East York is the first, there'll be a lot of money here. And so I was on the Hydro Commission. I went over to the Hydro guys and we sat down and talked. And I was quite surprised, but Jack Christie, who knew a lot about computers, thought it was a good idea too. And the next thing I knew, we put fiber optics into all the wire cable, which in turn went into all of the vacant factories in East York. And after about 1 or 2 years, every single one of those vacant factories was filled. You know, we had cartooning, we had computer animation, we had computers, just computer stuff. We had everybody who needed a computer was moving to East York. And we had no money when we started out, but by the time we were finished, by the time amalgamation came, we had paid off all of our debts, we had money in the bank, and East York was the most going concern in all of Toronto. And I just still remember that. We did things that were fun too. You know, everybody remember back to the 1992-93 when the Blue Jays won the World Series? 2 of the team members were Rob and Rich Butler. And they lived on Barrington Avenue in East York. They grew up in East York. They went to the East York schools. They went through the East York Baseball League. They played in Stan Wadlow Park. And when the Blue Jays won the World Series, we invited Rob Butler to come and to sign baseballs and stuff. And that place was crammed with people. I still remember it because we bought all the wine and stuff. The kid over there too. But everybody in East York still talks to this day that East York had changed, and they cite the day as Rob Butler Day. Okay. Went on to the election. I was very honored that the people of East York had a covenant, or I had a covenant with them. There was an election. And I spent a long time working in Metro Council and Hazel McCallion's meetings every month of all the mayors in the GTA, trying to determine a best way to make East York work. We had something that none of the others did. First of all, we were wired, but secondly and more importantly is that we had a process for bringing new industry into East York that nobody else did. That is because our planning guaranteed approval or rejection within 60 days. 60 days after an application was made, if it was for any kind of industry, if it was for any commerce, if it was for any store, they had 60 days that they would get an answer from East York. It took 2.5 years in Mel Lassman's part of the world, or even 2 years in Hazel McCallion's, but ours was 60 days. And that's why things started to fill. Our debt position was looked after, but we also had a lot of kind of difficult political tasks in those days. I don't know how many of you remember the great mosque controversy. The mosque controversy, the mosque is still there. The mosque is on Thorncliffe, on the other side from the apartments where Coca-Cola used to be. And that was a great controversy because the people in Thorncliffe, who were Sunni Muslims, mostly from India and Pakistan, wanted a place to worship. They came to our council and asked for a place to worship. And we didn't have any place. And our own bylaws said you couldn't put up a church in an industrial area because you could only put them up in a residential area. That was our law. And where were they going to get a residential area? In an apartment complex with all those 12,000 people living on a quarter of a mile. There was no place for them to put it up. And the planner and others told them no. But East York, as a council, after many votes, all of them 5-4, all of them 5-4, 5-4, 5-4, on every single vote, finally granted the mosque. It made the headlines in Saudi Arabia. It was on every single newspaper and every single television show for weeks and weeks. And you know, I'm telling you, to this day, that little mosque is still there. That little mosque, I've been all over the world. I haven't been to Mecca, but I have been all over the Arab world, all over the Muslim world, and I've been in giant, beautiful mosques, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. I've been in the biggest mosque in the world, which is in Malaysia. I've been in some in North Africa. I've been in some in Europe, but they're all way bigger. But to me, that's the finest mosque that there is any place, because the people in Thorncliffe fought for it, the people in Thorncliffe bought it, the people in Thorncliffe appreciate it, and the people in Thorncliffe are proud to be East York. Some of the other things we did, you may, those of you who know anything about or get around to the Walter Stewart Library, will see a monument there. Hardly anyone knows what the monument's about. I know Mary does, because it's a monument to the people of the Pontus, and they're Pontians. And people say, what is a Pontian? A Pontian was a Greek-speaking person who lived in the Black Sea from probably 1000 BC until 1916. In 1916, with the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, they were raped, they were killed, they were hoarded, they were sent away. They had nowhere to go, and they ended up, a lot of them, in Greece. But in Greece, they didn't speak the language. They spoke a Greek that was 3,000 years old. They had really no real roots. Some of them stayed there and adopted and adapted to Greek customs. But many of them came to Canada. And they wanted the world to know what happened to them. It happened at the same time as it happened to the Armenians, and we all know about the Armenians. We all know about their historical problem and how so many of them died in those same years. We don't know about the Pontians. But that little statue, go and have a look at it. It says 1916 to 1920, we remember their time of sorrow and sacrifice. And it's the only monument to the Pontians in the entire world. There's none in Greece, there's none in Turkey, there's none in Argentina where some went, there's none in Australia where some went. The only monument to the Pontians in the world is ours. And they're very proud of that. Then all of a sudden comes the amalgamation. Oh my goodness. You know, people were talking about the amalgamation. And the first time that I ever read anything about the amalgamation was a little tiny article that was no bigger than this in the Toronto Sun. Now, anybody who knew me in those days, and anybody who knows me today, knows that I like to call that the comic book of journalism. It's, you know, it's the precursor of Breitbart in the United States and some of those people. Little tiny article saying that the Premier is going to amalgamate everyone. And that same night, mayors of the 6 municipalities in Metro Toronto all were invited to come and down to meet the Premier, Mike Harris, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Al Leach. We all went down to hear what he had to say. And it was that night that he told us that he was going to amalgamate us. And I remember asking him a very serious question. Are you amalgamating us because we have no money? And he said, oh no, you have lots of money. Are you amalgamating us because our municipality does not work? Oh no, you work very well, he said. Are you amalgamating us for what reason then? Can you give me a reason? He said, I have none, but I have to do something. And that is the exact words that came out of his mouth and the Premier's mouth. They had to do something, but they didn't know why they were doing it. They still don't know why they were doing it. a few weeks later, after they started to get flack, they started to say, well, can you imagine? You have 6 mayors and you're going down to 1 mayor. You have 6 chiefs of fire and you're going down to 1. This is going to save you a fortune. But everybody knew, from Andrew Sankton, who had written all the amalgamations around Canada and the world, that they all cost money. And when we pointed all that out, they didn't like it. And we fought back. In East York, we held a vote. And we asked the citizens of East York to vote whether they wanted to be amalgamated. Of all the municipalities that did it, and all 6 did, we had the highest turnout, and we had 85% said no. Outreach and Mike Harris were pretty mad at this. And they said, well, we don't care what you say, and we're going to amalgamate you, and all of your stuff is going to go to the City of Toronto. But the East York Council was too smart for that. God bless True Davidson. All those many years before, she set up the East York Foundation. I don't know how many of you know about the East York Foundation. It's there even to this day. The East York Foundation, not East York, owned every single piece of art, every single historical artifact, the mayor's chain of office, the Great Seal, everything that was inside the municipal office that was in any way historical. We passed a motion on one of our meetings, and it's still there, that all of those things, the chain of office, the Great Seal, all of those pieces of art, the A.Y. Jacksons, it's worth probably more than $1 million. It belongs still to this day to the foundation. Toronto has the chain of office and all the art of the other municipalities. We still have our own. We still have our own. I had one opportunity to tell Mike Harris what I thought of him. I thought I was very gentle. I was invited to a wedding. On Cosburn Avenue, there's a little tiny bar called Sophie's. Sophie's, isn't it? George in there is a wonderful man, and his daughter Sophie was getting married, and I was invited to the wedding. And she was marrying an Italian guy from the north end of the city somewhere. Tons of money, tons of money. We went to the wedding, and when I got there, they announced that I was going to be sitting at the same table as Mike Harris. I asked if there was anywhere else I could sit in his earshot, and he was kind of surprised because, and I said I would rather sit with the lowliest person that was in the room than I would sit with him. And I refused to sit with him. And to this day, if you ask me, do I like politicians? I like them all except one. And I don't like the way he treated us, and I don't like the way he acted, and I don't like the way that he ignored the people of East York. And so, when he retired from the legislature, the entire legislature all said nice things about him. I was there by then, and they gave him a standing ovation. And the Toronto Sun, the comic book of journalism, noted that only one person sat at his desk, did not applaud, and did not stand up. And that was me. And I still feel that way, just so you know. Okay. Back to the, I spent time in the province representing both East York and the beach. And during that time, actually in council before then, we were able to get a third councillor for East York when we were shut out and we had underrepresentation. We were able to stop the sale of the East York Civic Centre because Tom Jacobek, you remember that man who found so much money one day? He thinks that maybe his grandmother might have given it to him and found it underneath a car, and somebody visited him in the underground parking lot at City Hall. Well, he was trying to sell it in order to make a quick buck. But we shut him down because one of the things we also did during the amalgamation is we gave the Royal Canadian Legion, the 5 branches in East York, a document which said that that park on which the Civic Centre is built is a war memorial, and that they were responsible from that point on to ensure that that war memorial never went to private hands. So when Tom Jacobek wanted to sell it off, he had the wrath of the entire Royal Canadian Legion come down on him, and to this day, still in public hands. So if you want to thank somebody, thank a Legionnaire, okay? Okay. Now, I'm going to conclude because I promised to only be 20 minutes and I'm probably already more than that. Today, I'm in Amherstburg. People ask me, why did you go there? Well, I had a summer home there, and you know, the brutal reality of provincial politics is that there's no pension. People think, oh, you guys get great pension. You know, you serve a couple of years, you get a great pension. After 13 years, I didn't win an election, it was my last one anyway, and found myself no pension and no money. My wife and I had a very difficult decision to make, and we had to make it together, and I don't know what else we could have done. We had to sell our house in East York, for which, you know, we got a good buck. Nobody's saying, I wished I had waited a year or two and I got a better buck, but that's the reality, that was the pension. And so we moved down to full-time to Amherstburg with the money from the house sale, and we lived there. And I've tried to do a little bit to help them out. I'm on the Committee of Adjustment, taking shots at developers who are trying to tear down our heritage, and some in particular hate me for it. But I refuse to let any heritage buildings be sacrificed, nor do I allow them to build in any place which is ecologically or environmentally sensitive. The island on which I live is one of the last places in North America that has two types of unique snakes. And I have used those snakes to stop all development. One is the eastern fox snake, and the other is the Butler's garter snake. And there's a unique turtle there called the Blandings turtle, as well as 13 endangered species live on my little island. And so I'm having great fun, and thank you to the environmentalists and to Paula here for imbuing me with that idea over the years that it's more important to save the snakes than for a developer to build another house. And so I do that, and right now I'm involved as the treasurer of the Bellevue Conservancy. The Bellevue Conservancy has been set up to restore and to keep one of the finest old houses that exists in all of Canada. It was built in 1816 by a gentleman named Reynolds, who was the commissar of Fort Malden, which was, as I said, was given back from the Americans after the War of 1812. In 1816, he wanted to make a statement that Canada could survive the attacks that had happened, and he built at that point what was the largest house in all of Canada, and it's still there, still standing. 1816 to 2016, it's 200 years old. Although it wasn't finished in 1816, it was started then. So it's 200 years old, and we are trying to get the money to restore it. The federal government, the Ontario government, both listed it as the 10 most endangered properties in all of Canada. And we have started to raise the funds. We need to raise $1 million, and if we get the million, we're hopeful that the federal government will match that. That's enough to secure the house and to get us going. It's on 8 acres of land. I have some stuff if there's heritage people here who want to look at it. And you know, my other time I spend reading and fishing and traveling, and if you want to hear more about all these things, and I've got 2 whole hours tomorrow, please come to Prestine Church, 1:30. That's at St. Clair and O'Connor. The church is, it should be a historical property too, but I'm afraid it's about to be torn down or something. But I'm looking forward to that. I thank you all for coming out tonight. I especially thank the East York Historical Society for keeping the dream of East York alive. Go out there in my car, you'll see, even though I'm in Amherstburg, I have a license plate that says Proud East Yorker front and back. I wear this little macaron on here every day because I promised Donald Lynn McCallum that I would wear it every day till I died, and I wear it every time I put on a suit. And I think about all of you all the time. I wish I could be here more often. I will come back whenever you ask me. But this is a community that needs to be preserved and celebrated. This is a community that is unique in all of this area, and this is a community that one day, I live in hope, one day may find its own root again. Because even in New York City, the first big amalgamation of the world, today they have boroughs. And today, they let the local people decide the local issues and run the city, you know, in the center. And I'm hoping one day to be able to see that happen here. I already know what I'm going to say. I'm going to come back. I'm going to stand somewhere where my carers can hear me and then say, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted. And I hope to be saying great things about all of you, and I know I will be about these children. Thank you so much for coming in.
As always, Michael, you were fantastic, and we really appreciated your message of bringing us up to date and reminding us of your time in office in particular, all the wonderful things that you achieved. I was struck by the fact that John Godfrey, the Member of Parliament, came to your office and told you about fiber optics. What he didn't tell you was that those fiber optics were made in East York by Canada Wire Cable, and as a result of that, he was doing a double selling job.
Good for him.
But we echo your comments about carrying on East York and the East York tradition, and hopefully we will have that borough back again one way or another. And we'd like you to accept it.